recording right away. So our pivot table series is going to expose us to what we can use pivot table for, how we can use them, and then we'll be able to analyze some data, then visualize them, because this is what this training is all about. And we have chosen some topics which we see useful to analyze and then to visualize. We have two trainings, the fundamentals of Microsoft Excel, which gives you an edge over Excel. How do you use Excel to do a lot of things you do? So in that fundamentals, it's actually 4 to 5 weeks course. From there, we have chosen some topics which you can use to do your analysis. And that is what we have brought onto this intensive spreadsheet analysis and visualization training. And then we picked some component of our data visualization, which is also a 4 to 5 weeks training. We picked some components there, bringing them together to form this intensive spreadsheet analysis and visualization. So as a way of introducing us to pivot tables, these are the uses of pivot table. So I am going to start by letting us know what the pivot table does. I know some of us may already know how pivot table works. It's something that we are going to be reviewing and see how that applies. Now we have this table. This is a table array. Okay, actually we have converted this to a table. You know, in Excel, we have 3 different types of tables. We have 3 different types of tables. We just want to mention them as a passing comment here, that we have the table array, which is the normal thing that most people think is a table in Excel. Then secondly, we have the table, and of Excel officially recognized table. We have the pivot table. So we are going to be looking basically on pivot table. All right, so here we have this data, and we will use this data to answer some questions. Now, pivot table can be used to do a lot of things. It can be used to summarize. It can be used to sort. It can be used to filter. It can be used to make some other calculations which may not be in the table. For instance, we have this, our table here now. There are some calculations we can introduce, not necessarily here, but inside the pivot table which we have created. So we'll be looking at that. Now, the first thing that we'll look at is that pivot table can be used to summarize. It can be used to sort. It can be used to filter. It can be used to reorganize your data. You can also use it to group, so that you can be looking at items that have been grouped, especially with numbers and dates. Say you want to see, you can see something that happens from January to December of a particular year, and you want to be looking at them in groups, say quarterly. You can also have things that have occurred over several years, and you decide to group them. You want to see what happened per year. Then we can use it to count numbers. We'll be looking at these examples here. You can also total with pivot table. And then there are a lot of other things that we can do with pivot table. All right, so I'm going to start away by summarizing. Now, if we have this table, how do we use pivot table to summarize? For instance, how many states are in the table? Now, when we look at this table, there are several entries here. For instance, we can see Enugu, we can see Lagos, we can see Kano. So we can just insert our pivot table and then do this. Assuming we have several records, up to, let's say, 15,000 records. Right now, let me see, right now we have only 421 records. Now, if we have up to thousands of records, it becomes cumbersome to do that, but with pivot table, it's easy. So what I need to do to answer this question is I need to insert a pivot table in this table and create one out of this. So how do we do it? We come over here. This is our ribbon, okay? In our worksheet, this is our ribbon up here. And in this ribbon, we have different tabs. So under this insert tab, I'm going to click and then activate the tab. Then right inside, we have these other sub-menus. Right at the extreme left here is my pivot table. So I'm going to click this pivot table. And then Excel is already predicting if this is the table, if this is the table that I am interested in. It has selected everything which I want. So that's okay. I have satisfied this requirement for the wizard to create a pivot table because I need to select the table or table range. Now, the next thing is I can actually decide to use an external data source to pull the data and analyze. But that is way beyond what we are doing right now. We are just working within Excel. Okay, so I have selected the table range. Next is choose where you want the pivot table to be pasted. So ordinarily, they will recommend that you paste it on a new worksheet. However, for the purpose of what we are doing, I'm going to choose this. The reason I want to choose this is I want to let you know some of the difficulties you will have when you paste it on an existing worksheet so that we can work against that. Now, once I have chosen this, I need to identify which location. All right, so let me decide to put it here. Now, when I click OK, this pops up. You see that a lot of things have happened. Now that this pivot table is here, I have clicked inside and you see this panel. This is my pivot table field panel. It's a floating panel. You can move it from here to whichever you want. For instance, I might decide to pull it away from here, drop it anywhere. But by default, it's here and it's better here because it gives you opportunity to do a lot of other things. All right, so now in this field, we have, in this panel, we have four different, let me snug it back. We have four different fields here, these areas here. These areas, we have the filter, we have the column, we have the values, and we have the rows. Now, by default, depending on each of these columns here, if the column is a text field, once you click the text field here, it comes directly under the row here. But if you can also pull it from here and drop it in the value here. And because it's a text field, it will give you count. It will give you count by default because you cannot sum text values, but you can sum number values. Now, if the field is number, which you can sum, once you click it, by default, it comes to the value area here. And the default operation will be sum. So now we are going to do some examples now. Right here, the reason why this is showing, and you can see also here, because I clicked here. Now, if I click away from this pivot table, this will disappear. If I click away like now, that means I am working in this spreadsheet environment. So because you have inserted the pivot table, it is you are now working within 2 environments, and you can choose which one you are working. Even here also, this is another, this is a table, it's an Excel table. Look at the option here. It's a table. It is not the ordinary table that you can create your headers and then input your data. So working with this pivot table, I'm going to click here and then I'll activate this pen. Now, to answer this question, say how many states are there in the table? Now, if I click here, right now I'm going to click the state without dragging it. I'm just going ahead to click it. You see that by default, it is here on that row because it is text field. So here we have the unique states. This is telling you that out of the entire 421 entries here, 421 records here, it is coming from 5 unique states. So you can see that by just mere click, about 3 clicks, insert your pivot table and then dragging this down, you have been able to get the first question answered. How many states are there in? Okay, Jenny, do we have any tests coming in?
Hello, sorry. What's your question?
Okay.
No. Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Are there questions? I see some notification as if there are chats.
Okay, no, it's no questions yet.
Okay.
Just people putting the expectations, and someone is mentioned he's unhappy about being logged out. No questions yet.
Okay. All right, so we continue. Now, having answered this first question, how many states are there in the table? This is the answer to that. Now, how many staff submitted reports in the table? This is just the same thing as this, the first one. However, we just need to pivot and change this. Rather than having the state here right now, we are going to have the staff. Now, if I need to answer that and show it separately, I can decide to insert a new pivot table or copy this one and change my focus here. So because okay, let me do one more exercise of how to insert the pivot table. So what I do is I'm going to click inside the table that I want. It could be an official table or it could be a table array. So right now I have clicked here. I'm going to click here, insert. So when I click insert, right at the extreme left here, I have my pivot table. So I'm going ahead to click this and I need to select the table or the table range that I want. Good enough, Excel is predicting this. And so when I check, it has covered every part of my table and I'm good to go with that. So I go to the next. And I told you that by default, it is recommended for beginners to put on a new worksheet. But I say that because of our training session, I'm going to put it on the same existing worksheet that we are working. So that's what I did here. And then I selected the location where I want it to happen, to be placed. So I'm going to choose here and I'm going to OK it. Now this comes up again. So we are trying to answer question 2, how many staff submitted reports? Okay, so I'm going to click here to bring back this panel. Now I am looking at staff. Remember that we say if a staff column, if a column has text field, when you click it, it's going to come under here. So now when I look at staff here, where is my staff? The staff is the column A here in our table. And we can see that is a text. So I'm going ahead just to check this staff. And automatically it comes under the rule here, showing us that these are the unique staff that submitted reports. So we are not just telling how many staff, we are also showing it right here with the help of this pivot table. Now, you will see that while I'm pasting these pivot tables, I am having a space in between. That's because it is best. I usually encourage people and advise that when you're working with a table, always leave spaces by the sides across, that is at the top and the bottom, so that Excel will not mistake any data sent to it as part of the table. All right, so we have answered question number 2. Question number 3 is, how many times state submit report? How many times did each state submit report? Now, when we look at how many times, we are looking at a count function, a count function. So what we need to do here is we need to insert another pivot table, and then because the number 3 question is talking about the state count, we will now pick the state rather than allowing it to be here because it's a text field. We'll bring it to this value here. We'll forcefully bring it here, and then the default operation is count. Now, bearing that in mind, that's what we are going to do. But let's tow part to get our pivot table. Now, previously we had gone through insert command here to insert our table, but what we need to do now is we need to copy. So I am going to copy. I'm going to copy an already existing one. So let me say I highlight every part of this pivot table. I am going to copy it and paste. So I can either Control C, this is Control C, and then I paste it here. I paste it here. It's the same thing. So I begin to walk around. That is one way. So I'm going to undo this. Another way again is to select this. Then I'm going to hold down my Control button. I'm going to pick this and drop it here. So that is another way of copying. We did all this in our fundamentals of Microsoft Excel, where we teach the different types of different ways that you can actually, the shortcuts and a lot of things that can help you to speed up your work. All right, so we are looking at question number 3. It says, how many times did each state submit reports? So the one we copied is for staff. So all I need to do is to remove this. I'm clicking it away from here, bringing it out. And then I'm going to click my question number 3 is talking about state. So I'm going to click state here. When I click state here, it's still going to give me back here, but this is not what I want. I want it here. So I bring it here, and then it comes to count. So this is the number of times that the states made entries to. So I'm going to change the value feed here. Okay, I have this here. Now, I need to know how many times did each state count, make entries that result to this 421. Now, let me take my state here and bring it here. So you will see that Enugu entered 196 times, Benue entered 15 times, FCT entered 98 times, and this gives us the total of 421 times. So the next thing we need to do now is question number 4. What is the total order generated? So when we're looking at total, we are looking at sum. So the next thing we need to do, we can go ahead and copy this again. You know, the good thing about pivot table is if you don't like what you are seeing, you can remove it. You are not deleting anything. You can remove it and start all over again without losing any data. So I'm going to copy this and drop it here. Now the question for number 4 is saying, what is the total order generated by each staff. So what I am going to do is, what I've copied is not what I want. So I'm going to remove them. I remove this count state, and I'm going to bring my order. So let me bring order here. Now, I want to tell you that this order is number. So I am going ahead to click, and it will automatically come to the value area here. And then the default operation is sum. Because if you look at our table, order here is number, which can be added. And like we say, by default, if you click any field here that is number, it will come here. And the default operation is sum. So I'm going ahead to click, just to click it. It has automatically come down to the value area. And it's giving me the order for each state. Now let's see number 4. The number 4 is talking about staff. What is the total order generated by each staff? But what I have here is the total order generated by each state. So what I need simply to do is to remove this and bring in staff here. Now I want you to note that the moment I change this, this also will change corresponding to the respective fields here. So I'm going to take away this state. I'm going to bring in my staff. Now these are the respective staff, and these are their respective orders. So whatever you change here, pivot table will give you a corresponding value here. So the next one is, what is the total order for each state? So here, I can go ahead and copy this also and bring the value here, the pivot table there. You can see I am creating a space in between them. I'm going to show you one of the reasons why you may encounter problems when you arrange them like this. So here we are looking at this is what we have copied from here, and this is looking at the staff order. So what I need to do is to bring in my state here. I'm going to bring the two of them together here so that I will explain something. Now, when I bring this here, this is arranging the staff, and these are their respective orders for the states. So if we say that this staff is 3.6 million. 3.6 million. How did this staff get this 3.6 or 3.7 million? It's these entries here. So you see that if you add the value for Enugu, FCT, and Kano, it will give you this value here. The same thing for each of them. For Enugu, FCT, Kano, and Lagos, these are the respective orders generated by Samson, giving you a total of this. The same thing for Sharon, the same thing for the others. Okay, so but now our question is asking us, that's question number what? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Question number 5 is talking about each state. So what I will simply need to do is I can pull this stuff away. See now, I'm pulling it out. The moment I pull it out, every other thing collapses, leaving what I have here. Now, I may decide to see, okay, how did each state fare? I want to find out the states, how many staff contributed and what did they contribute. Remember the one we saw ago is staff, and then we segregated their respective values per state. But right now, I can bring in my staff here, and then you will see that for each of these states, these are the respective staff orders. So the good thing about pivot table is if you don't like the look of what you are looking, you can pivot, you can change. For instance, now I can decide to carry this one and drop them here and just play around with it until you get what you feel it's good for your analysis. All right, so I'm going to take away this again so that we'll have our state order. Now, the sixth question is, what is the total order for each month? So now we are talking about dates. Now let's play around here. I'm going to, let me create this. And then here, I have this. So rather than having state here, let me bring my date here. Let me bring my date here. Now you see that this is giving me January to December. These are their respective values. Question that we have. What is the value, the total order generated within each month? What is the total order for each month? So this is one way that you find pivot table useful, and it shows you exactly for each of these questions how the states, the staff, the months, they stand based on your question. Now for each of these, we can go ahead and plot graphs. You can use this to plot graph, and then you are seeing Enugu versus how many times it occurred in this table. This is our count. And here also, we are looking at the staff, the total number that they generated. Okay. Now, I want to let us know that here, these things are, you can change them. You can change them. Here it's talking about state, but I have row labels here. I can change this thing to state. It's either I do it automatically to reflect what here is all about, or I type it. However, when you are changing the names here, the labels here, the column labels here, the row labels, you must not use a name that is already chosen here. You must not use the name that is already chosen here. By the time we go to calculated field, we will see that clearly playing out. So what I need to do, if I want what is here, for instance, this is state. If I want this, the original thing to appear here, all I need to do is, because my cursor is on the pivot table, of course, we have this panel, and up here, we have our pivot table tools. Pivot table tools have two sub-menus. We have the analyze. So these are the things you can do under pivot table to analyze. Then we have design. These are the things that are here under my design. For instance, I may decide to choose a different look for my pivot table. You see, as I'm hovering over them, it is changing. So I may just decide to, this is what I like, or this, or this, or this. These are entirely at your discretion. So whichever one, for instance, if we choose this one, it goes. Then the next thing is, I go to my report layout. Remember what I want to do. I want this thing to show what we have here, which is state. So I come over to my report layout. I click this. I need to choose tabular form. So when I click this tabular form, automatically the state, which is the original thing that was here, appears. So like I said, assuming this is not state, okay, this is state. Let's say I want to put it state. Sorry. States. I've changed it to states. Originally it was state, but I've changed it to state. Let me say, if I put zone here, you see it is zone. Now look at it from our original table. We didn't have zone here, we have state. However, because I have changed this here, we have zone here, we have zone here. Now, for this now, I can change it to whatever I want. But for here, not here, for the here rather, because this and this are the same. So if I want this one to take this form, all I need to do is to do the same thing, come over to my report layout, check this, and it's taking the original thing that was here. Remember that for this pivot table is staff, but for this pivot table is state. For this one, it's zone. So this is some of the things that you play around with. Now for here, I don't want people to see that this is a count of states. I can say, I may decide to change this to what's our 3. How many times did each state submit report? So I can say number of times of reports or number of times states submit report or whatever. So I can put number of times per state and it takes it. So I just need to open this. So this is what we have, different from our original table. Now, let me also let us know that under my design, here we have subtotals, we have grand totals, we can activate or enable them. For instance, now we see that by default, I have grand total. Now let's play around so that you see what I mean. Here we can see, no, not here. Here we can see off for rows and columns. That means you don't want grand total for rows. You don't want grand total for columns. So if I click this, my grand total that was here, I no longer see it. There are times in your operation you don't want that to be seen. You don't want it, it's of no use to you. So all you need to do is to go and deactivate it here. I may decide to on it for the both of them again. So this is for both rows and columns. Now I can switch it on for rows alone. So if I switch it on, there is no, let me see, for rows, I don't have anything for here to show that, I guess so. Then for columns only, that's when we have this. Okay, so when we will activate for the rows only is when we have other things. Okay, so we are going to look at that in a very short time. All right, so having answered these questions, all these 5 questions on how we can use pivot table to summarize, we would like to pause and then see if we can entertain any questions, any comments before we proceed. So it's open for questions, please.
Okay, so thank you so much, Samson, so far for what we've done. If you have any questions, you can type it in the chat box or you raise your hand and you'll be called on to ask your question. All right, so you have a hand raised. Bala is raising his hand. I think Bala, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Mine is not even a question, it's just a comment. I just want to commend the presenter that whenever we had a class like this, we always learn something new. I have learned something that I have never learned before, so thank you for that effort.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that feedback.
Okay, we have a question from Yetunde. She says, thanks for your presentation, teaching. I hope the videos we made available to us so that we can go through again. Thanks. Yes, Yetunde, the videos we made available to everybody.
Would that be all for the questions? Can we proceed?
Yes, I think so. I think it's more of thank yous that are coming next. So
Okay.
I think we can proceed.
All right, so the next thing we want to look at is sorting. We want to see how we can use pivot table to sort. All right, so I have this is the same work sheet, and we have just some few questions that we need to use and do our sorting. Number one, present the staff in ranking order of their total orders. So we have this staff. We are going to put them in their ranking order. So it's very easy. Right now, rather than inserting our pivot table through the normal process, I am going to use a shortcut. The shortcut, it works whenever you are playing with Excel. Now, like I said, to activate these commands on your ribbon, you can press Alt, ALT. So ALT will assign codes to these commands. See, I'm pressing Alt now. You will see that we have FHN, PMA, RWL, and so on and so forth. You may not have some of them here because of the kind of work I do, I have to buy these cool tools. So you may not be able to have these. And I know it's the same thing with some of you that might be working with official laptops. There may be add-ons added by your admin, right? So you may not see this here. You may also not be able to see this developer, but you can actually add some of these things when you have need for them. Now, having activated these codes here is the same thing for all Excel worksheets. Now, I know that my pivot table is under insert. So an insert here is labeled N. So the next thing I'll do is to press N on my laptop. And then all the submenus under the insert command pop up, and then they have the assigned codes, as you can see. Then my interest is this pivot table, which is V. So the next thing I will do is press V. And then this my pivot table create wizard pops up, which we had used in our previous discussion. All right, so I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to do that in a fast fashion. Alt and V. So if you get used to this and you're working with Excel and you want to work, you are working with pivot table, all you need to do is make it fast. Alt NV, and you're there. Rather than going there to click and click and click. Okay. So now we are going to, yes, I'm going to choose this, my existing worksheet. But you will now see that this table is not selected. What's the problem? The problem is my cursor was not inside the table. So Excel was not able to detect any table. So, but you need to identify your table. Now, at this point, I want to mention some basic things about your pivot table. One, each of the pivot table that you create has a name. It has a name. Now, when you create even ordinary table has a name. Anything that has a name can be changed. Now, I'm going to exit here. Let me show us something from what we did before. Where is it? Where is what we did before? Okay, it's here. Now, when I click on this, I'm going to click under my analyze. Now, see here, over here, I have pivot table 1, which is this. Now, I'm going to click the second one, just be looking over here. It has changed to 2, and the active field is staff. Let me go back here and see the active field is state. Here for table number 2 is staff. Table number 3, okay, that means we had 4 because this is jumping. Let's see if we have, sorry, we have 3 somewhere. Let me see. What happened to our 3? This is 5. Okay, this is still 5. This is 6. And this is 7. Okay, I don't know what happened to table number 3. Well, we shouldn't bother ourselves. All we need to do is we can label them again. And then when you are renaming your pivot table or you are renaming a name box here, this is the name box here is, we discussed that in our fundamentals of Microsoft Excel. But however, it's the same thing when you are renaming a cell range or your pivot table. You do not use space. So I am going to rename this pivot table number 1. Let me say PVT, PVT 1. So when I enter, that becomes the name. Now when I come to number 2, assuming I'm saying PVT and I'm putting a space, I'm putting 2. Excel is going to, let me see. Okay, so he accepted it. PVT space 2. All right, it accepted it. Let me see about range. If this is range, let me see table space 2. Okay, I think it's only the name box here when you are naming a range that does not accept that. But for pivot table, let's just believe it can. I'm under the impression it does not. Okay, so we go away. Now, what I also want to let us know is that even your table, when you create your table, remember that this is an official table, different from the table that we usually use in our Excel. Let me go back to this sort here, and I'm going to create a very small table array. So for instance, now I have name, I have age. All right, so I have Samson is 20 years old. I have Bala is 12 years old. I have Jennifer, she's 10 years old. Now I can simply, sorry, this is Jennifer. Jennifer, this is 10. So here right now, I can beautify this and people may think this is a table. Now see the difference. I'm going to get another one here now. Let me say here now. Now, see the difference. This is a table. You see I have this table option here. When I click inside here, I don't have that. I click here, I don't have that. But I click here, I have this table tools, which means there is something different from, there is a striking difference between this and this. The truth of the matter is that this is not an Excel official table. This is a table array. There are several advantages that working with Excel table like this gives you, several of them. But we're not discussing that. I just wanted to mention about names. So when you look here, coming over to your design here for the table, you have the table here. So I can decide to label this table now. Let's say sort table. Let me say sort table. You see, it is not accepted. So I don't know why that pivot table accepts. If your own does not accept, it is what I understand because the syntax is not correct. Okay, so it should just be sort. You can use underscore to link the two, and then it goes. So here is pivot, it's sort table. So for me to make this happen here, I need to insert a table on here. So that once I click here, I should have these options here. I do that by clicking inside here, inside this table array, and I'm going to hit my Control T. Now it's giving me, it's trying to predict if this is what I want to convert table into table. And if it is okay for me, I click yes. Automatically, you see that these table tools appear here. Again, you see this design. These are some of the advantages. But when I click here, I don't have that. Now, when I click here, there is a name here. When I click here, because it's not the table, there is no name here. All right, so I'm going to delete this. And then when you're deleting, let me see if I still have table here. Okay, so that is gone. Now, what I was trying to bring into being is when I click here, and I'm going to click Alt-N-V to insert my table. See, the name here has changed. It's no longer that range. It's no longer that long name, but it's the name that we have assigned to this table. So you may not need to look down again if it has selected all your tables. So long as the name is here, you are good to go. So if you have several records up to thousands, 15,000, 100,000, because we have seen before that this is up to 16,000 or is it 1 million or thereabout records here. So once I have named that, I have the name here, and that is okay for me. So I'm going to come here and then select existing. Then let me just drop it here, and here we go. All right, so having done the first example of summarizing, we did all the questions. Going forward, we will not do all the questions. We'll just be doing one, and then you will participate. You will do the rest, okay, as a practice session. So what I'm going to do here right now is I need to present. So here, so long as I have inserted my pivot table, I may not need this again. So present the staff ranking in order of their total values. First is staff. So because staff field is text, I can simply click it and it comes over here. So these are the staff. Then the next thing is order, total order. So if I click order here, because it is number, it automatically comes over here. And then looking at back what we discussed, I can simply come to design, go to my tab, I get my staff here. And then here, I can rename it to total order. So this is it. However, we are expected to present it in ranking order. The ranking order that we are talking about is, you know, in our classrooms, our conventional ranking